Picture this. It's late February 2026. A sleek delta-winged aircraft cuts low through the gray skies over eastern Ukraine. It approaches the front line fast, descends sharply, pulls into a climb, and at the apex of that climb releases two precision-guided bombs. The aircraft banks hard and disappears. Seconds later, a Russian position erupts in a massive fireball. But here's what makes this moment different from every airstrike that came before it. That aircraft is a French Mirage 2000, and those bombs, AASM Hammer glide bombs, among the most sophisticated air-to-surface munitions in the Western arsenal. For the first time in this war, Ukraine just showed the world that its Mirages are not just defenders of the sky, they are hunters. This is the moment that changes the equation on the front lines. And if you want to understand why Putin should be losing sleep over this development and why Ukraine still faces a near impossible challenge to fully capitalize on it, you're watching the right channel. Stay with us because this story goes deep. We're going to break down the weapon, the aircraft, the battlefield logic, and the brutal arithmetic of glide bomb warfare. All of it. If you haven't subscribed to World Brief Daily yet, now is the perfect time. Hit subscribe and enable notifications because this conflict is moving fast and every day counts. Let's start at the beginning. The opening months of 2026 have not gone according to plan for Vladimir Putin. Ukraine has dramatically escalated its long-range strikes deep into Russian territory. More frequent, more precise, and far more damaging than anything seen in previous years. On the front lines themselves, a Ukrainian counteroffensive along the border of the Zaporizhia and Dnipropetrovsk oblasts has reportedly recaptured over 400 square kilometers of critical territory. That is not a small gain in the context of this grinding attritional war. That is a significant psychological and strategic blow to Moscow. And now on top of all that, Putin has a new problem. Glide bombs. But not his glide bombs. Ukraine's. In late February 2026, footage emerged published by the Ukrainian aviation-linked Telegram community known as Sonia Schnick, showing a Mirage 2000 fighter jet releasing two AASM Hammer precision-guided aerial bombs against Russian ground positions. As reported by the Ukrainian defense outlet Military, this was the first publicly documented ground strike carried out by a Ukrainian-operated Mirage 2000. The aviation community connected to the aircraft was characteristically cryptic about the details. True to their name, they wrote, "They are seen nowhere but engaged everywhere and always. We thank France for its steadfast support of our military and for providing modern, high-quality weapons." That quiet confidence tells you everything you need to know about the confidence Ukraine now has in this aircraft. But to understand why this moment matters so much, we need to go way back to understand the AASM Hammer, the Mirage 2000, and how this particular combination is reshaping the war. Here's where it gets interesting. For much of 2025, Ukraine's small fleet of French-supplied Mirage 2005 fighters operated almost entirely in a defensive role. These jets were protecting Ukrainian cities, intercepting Russian cruise missiles and Shahed drones using infrared and radar-guided air-to-air missiles, specifically the Mika and Magic II systems, and by all accounts, they were remarkably effective at it. In a November 2025 report cited by multiple defense analysts, a Ukrainian Mirage pilot described using the aircraft to intercept 6 Kh-101 cruise missiles during a single Russian air raid, claiming a reported effectiveness rate approaching 98%. That is extraordinary. That is a machine earning its keep many times over. And yet, from the moment France agreed to deliver Mirage 2000s to Ukraine, everyone who follows this conflict closely understood that the aircraft had a second capability, one that would eventually be unlocked: ground attack. The Mirage 2000D variant and the 2005 are both capable multi-role platforms. According to multiple defense sources confirmed throughout 2025, France modified the jets before delivery to integrate AASM Hammer glide bombs and Scalp EG cruise missiles. The integration was done. The pilots were being trained. The question was when, not if. The answer turned out to be late February 2026. Now let's talk about the weapon itself, because the AASM Hammer deserves your full attention. AASM stands for Armament Air Sol Modular. Hammer stands for Highly Agile Modular Munition Extended Range. The system was designed by the French defense company Safran Electronics and Defense, and it first entered service with the French Air Force and Naval Aviation back in 2007. The core concept is elegant. Take a conventional bomb, a so-called dumb bomb, and attach a sophisticated modular kit to transform it into a precision-guided all-weather standoff weapon. That modularity is the Hammer's greatest strength. The system supports 4 different bomb sizes: 275 pounds, 550 pounds, 100 pounds, and 2,200 lbi. The guidance and propulsion systems are also interchangeable, which means mission planners can tailor the exact configuration to the exact target. 3 primary variants define the system. The baseline SBU-38 uses a hybrid inertial navigation system combined with GPS guidance, giving it a circular error probable, or C, of around 33 FT. In plain terms, half of all bombs dropped land within 33 FT of their target. In modern warfare, that precision is the difference between a destroyed command post and a near miss that achieves nothing. The SBU-54 adds semi-active laser homing on top of the SBU-38's baseline, allowing the munition to home in on laser-designated targets, including moving ones day or night, in dynamic, rapidly changing combat environments. And then there's the most sophisticated variant, the SBU-64, which incorporates imaging infrared homing. This variant can match the target area against a reference image stored in its memory, enabling extremely accurate strikes across a range of environments and lighting conditions. According to Ukraine's Ministry of Defense, AASM Hammer bombs deliver target accuracy within 10 meters. The booster system enables engagement of targets at ranges of up to 70 kilometers, allowing the aircraft to release the munition from a safe standoff distance well outside the reach of most Russian short-range air defenses. As confirmed by the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense in Ukrainian service, AASM Hammer bombs have been adapted for use on MiG-29 aircraft as well, and now on the Mirage 2005F. Each aircraft can carry the weapon on multiple hardpoints. The Mirage 2000 specifically having 9 hardpoints across its airframe. It's unclear exactly which variants of the Hammer Ukraine's Mirages are currently deploying, but given the range of target types Ukraine faces, from static fortified positions in the near rear to more dynamic frontline targets, it is highly likely that all 3 variants are in use. Now, before we go further, if you're finding this analysis valuable, make sure you're subscribed to World Brief Daily. This is the kind of deep dive content we publish regularly, and you don't want to miss what's coming next in this series. Hit subscribe right now. Let's talk about the battlefield context, because this is where the Hammer glide bomb becomes truly devastating. The war in Ukraine has fundamentally changed modern warfare. The pervasive use of FPV drones and fiber optic guided drones has essentially dissolved the concept of a stable, defined front line. The old no man's land, that clear strip of contested territory between 2 entrenched positions, is disappearing. In its place is something far more complex and far more dangerous. Drones with ranges of 20 meters or more mean that no position anywhere near the front line is truly safe. Resupply by drone means forward positions can be held even after ground supply lines are cut. The battlefield has become fluid in every direction. Out of this chaos, a new concept has emerged. The logistics zone, what used to be called the near rear, the space 20 to 40 kilometers behind the most forward Russian positions, has become an active part of the conflict. As reported by Euromaidan Press, this is the zone where Russian regiments and brigades store their ammunition and fuel, and where they mass their troops ahead of assaults across no man's land. As military analysts have pointed out, ground attacks with precision glide bombs can hit the enemy where they're weakest, precisely in this logistic zone where defenses are softer and targets are densely packed. And this is exactly where Ukraine's Mirage-dropped Hammer bombs are designed to strike. Russia has understood the importance of this zone for a long time. Their own Su-34 fighter bomber crews have been relentlessly striking Ukraine's equivalent logistic zone with their own FAB glide bombs. But Ukraine has been slower to target the Russian logistic zone, directing drone teams to hunt infantry in no man's land while holding back Air Force assets for defensive missions. That calculus is now shifting. The introduction of Mirage-launched Hammer bombs represents Ukraine's first credible step toward waging the same kind of devastating logistic zone air campaign that Russia has been running for nearly 2 years. But wait, how did Russia build such a dominant glide bomb advantage in the first place? Let's go back to where this asymmetry began. Russia's guided aerial bomb program, the FAB-KB series, equipped with the UMPK, or Unified Gliding and Correction Module, essentially weaponized the Soviet Union's enormous Cold War stockpile of unguided dumb bombs. The UMPK is a relatively inexpensive conversion kit estimated to cost around $20,000 per unit. You strap it onto a Soviet-era FAB bomb and suddenly a crude unguided explosive becomes a precision-guided glide munition, capable of striking targets from 60 to 70 kilometers away. No need to enter Ukrainian airspace. No need to risk the aircraft to close-range air defenses. Simple, cheap, devastatingly effective. According to the Joint Air Power Competence Center, Russia was releasing approximately 3,500 of these UMPK-equipped bombs per month by early 2025, over 100 per day across the entire front. According to Ukrainian authorities, since the full-scale invasion began in 2022, Russia has dropped over 51,000 guided aerial bombs on Ukraine, mostly FAB and KAB glide bombs. Cities like Mirnurad and Kostantka have had entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble. Infrastructure, civilian housing, hospitals, nothing is off-limits. And in January 2026 alone, as reported by Euromaidan Press, the use of glide bombs hit a new monthly record. Over 5,700 dropped in a single month, a staggering 26% increase compared to December 2025. On February 27, 2026, the same day Ukrainian Mirages were filmed using their own Hammer bombs, Russian forces used 328 guided aerial bombs in a single day, surpassing the previous record of 268 set on October 17, 2025. Let that sink in. On the same day Ukraine debuted its Mirage-launched glide bombs in combat, Russia was dropping 328 of its own. The scale of the asymmetry is staggering. Russia's FABs come in multiple variants. The FAB 250 is the smallest, a roughly 550 lb bomb. The FAB 1500 carries approximately 1,088 pounds of explosive fill and has a glide range of 30 to 45 miles. And then there is the FAB 3000, a three-tone-on behemoth with a range of roughly 30 to 40 miles and a destructive capacity that is almost incomprehensible. According to military expert David Hamling, the current version of the FAB 1500 has accuracy better than 10 meters, which pretty much guarantees destruction given the weapon's sheer size. And Russia is not standing still. The UMPB-D30SN, a purpose-built glide bomb, not a converted Soviet-era bomb, was first observed in spring 2024 and offers improved ranges of up to 90 kilometers along with enhanced resistance to electronic warfare. More recently, a new variant called the UMPB-5R has emerged, reportedly equipped with a Chinese SW-800 per-wide jet engine that could extend its range to as far as 125 to 200 kilometers. Ukraine's intelligence directorate has confirmed test strikes from this weapon and expects serial production to begin soon. As deputy head of Ukraine's military intelligence director, Vadim Skitsky confirmed at an October 2025 event, Russia is now combat testing aviation bombs with new guidance modules with ranges of 150 to 200 kilometers and improved resistance to electronic warfare. Russia is not just scaling quantity, it is scaling quality. Here's where it becomes critically important to understand what Ukraine is doing to fight back. Ukraine has deployed multiple countermeasures against Russian FABs. Ukrainian air defenses have targeted the Su-34 fighter bombers that carry these weapons with some notable kills. Long-range Ukrainian drones have struck FAB storage depots and production facilities inside Russia. Ukraine and its NATO partners are also testing anti-glide bomb drone systems, including the French DWS-1, which is designed to intercept and destroy cabs in mid-flight. From September to November 2025 alone, Ukrainian air defenses reportedly destroyed up to 100 glide bombs. But let's do the brutal math. Russia is producing an estimated 3,500 glide bombs per month. Ukraine's current countermeasures destroyed roughly 100 over a 3-month period. Even if those numbers improve dramatically, the volume overwhelms the defense. Ukraine cannot shoot down 3,500 bombs a month. It doesn't have the missiles. Even if it did, those missiles cost tens or hundreds of times more per unit than the fabs they'd be shooting down. It is economically impossible to out-intercept Russia's glide bomb campaign at current rates. So Ukraine's response has to be different. It has to be offensive, targeting fabs at the source, disrupting production, destroying storage, and now dropping its own glide bombs on Russian logistic zones and frontline concentrations. This is the strategic logic behind the Mirage's new offensive role, and it mirrors precisely what Ukraine did with its F-16s. When the first ex-European F-16s arrived in Ukraine in August 2024, they too were initially deployed almost exclusively for defensive air patrols over cities. It wasn't until Ukraine's F-16 fleet had grown to a few dozen aircraft that some began flying offensive bombing raids with U.S.-made cruise missiles and precision glide bombs, GBU-39B small-diameter bombs, and potentially AGM-154 joint standoff weapons. The pattern is consistent. Deploy new aircraft defensively while the fleet size grows and pilot proficiency increases. Then transition to offensive operations when the numbers and conditions justify the risk. With the Mirages, Ukraine appears to have made the transition to offensive operations earlier in the fleet's development, likely because it has learned from the F-16 experience and because of a very specific battlefield opportunity that has opened up. Ukraine's recent successes in targeting and destroying Russian frontline air defense systems have likely created gaps in Russian air defense coverage along portions of the front. These gaps reduce the risk of sending Mirages into standoff range. Combined with the Hammer's 70-kilometer standoff release distance, those gaps may be wide enough to create viable strike corridors. It is a window. Ukraine is now flying through it. But now let's talk about the two obstacles that stand between Ukraine's current limited glide bomb capability and the kind of devastating war-ranging campaign it would need to match Russia. The first problem is numbers. Aircraft numbers. Russia can deploy 4 different types of aircraft to drop fabs. The Su-34 fighter bomber estimated fleet of around 130. The Tu-22 M3 long-range bomber with roughly 60 still in service. The Su-24 attack jet with approximately 200 to 250 aircraft still operational. And the specialized MiG-31K with around 20 to 30 capable of carrying heavy standoff munitions. Combined, that is a massive fleet of dedicated glide bomb delivery platforms. Ukraine, by contrast, has at most a few dozen F-16s, and as of early 2026, approximately 4 to 5 operational Mirage 2005Fs. France delivered 3 Mirages during 2025, one of which was subsequently lost to a technical malfunction, and 2 more were expected by the end of the first quarter of 2026. As reported by military and confirmed by multiple defense sources, 3 additional Ukrainian pilots were undergoing Mirage training in France as of early 2026. France may ultimately donate its entire fleet of 26 Mirage 2000s to Ukraine as it upgrades to the next-generation Dalt Rafale. But the timeline for those deliveries remains uncertain, tied to France's own transition schedules and the pace of Rafale production. With so few Mirages on hand, and with these jets still playing an irreplaceable defensive role protecting Ukrainian cities, Ukraine is walking a careful line. The AASM Hammer's standoff range gives pilots a meaningful buffer from Russian air defenses. But every offensive mission is a calculated risk when your total fleet can be counted on one hand. As the fleet grows and as Ukraine continues degrading Russian air defenses, this constraint should ease, but it will take time. The second obstacle is far more difficult to solve. Glide bombs, or rather the lack of enough of them. Before Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, Safran's annual production of AASM Hammer bombs was by any measure symbolic. Industry data estimated annual output at around 200 to 250 units. That implies a total accumulated stockpile of perhaps 3,000 to 4,000 Hammer bombs since the weapon entered service in 2007. To put that in perspective, Russia currently produces more FAB glide bombs in a single month than France had stockpiled across nearly 2 decades of Hammer production. Since 2022, Safran has dramatically accelerated production. Estimated output reached approximately 500 Hammers in 2023, 830 in 2024, and over 1,000 in 2025. In 2024, the French Parliament committed the government to regular deliveries of 600 AASM Hammer bombs per year to Ukraine, initially drawing from French military stockpiles with increasing production, allowing ongoing deliveries while also replenishing French inventories, but 600 bombs per year against Russia's 3,500 bombs per month. That is a ratio of roughly 1 to 70. Even if France doubles or triples its delivery commitment, the production gap is enormous. According to Ukraine's Ministry of Defense, deliveries are currently running at approximately 60 hammers per month, consistent with the 600 per year pledge. In February 2026, a letter of intent was signed in Kyiv between Ukraine's Minister of Defense Mikhail Fedorov and France's Minister of the Armed Forces, Catherine Vautrin, covering joint weapons production in Ukraine and France, with a specific focus on achieving what was described as record volumes of AASM Hammer deliveries. The intent is there, but scaling production of a sophisticated precision munition is not something that happens overnight. Now, there is a potential alternative path: the American GBU-39B small-diameter bomb. Ukraine's F-16s already carry up to 8 of these per sortie, and the Mirage 2000 could also be modified to carry them. On paper, the supply picture looks better here. The U.S. Air Force has planned procurement of 24,000 GBU-39B small-diameter bombs, with over 17,000 already built since production began in 2005. Boeing is currently producing around 2,500 annually, ramping up further under a $6.9 billion production contract running through 2035. At an estimated cost of around $57,800 per unit, it is one of the most cost-effective precision munitions available globally. But here's where it gets complicated, and this should sound familiar to anyone who has followed the Patriot PAC-3 missile supply chain. In May 2025, the U.S. Congress approved the foreign military sale of 1,400 GBU-39DBs to Poland for $180 million. That's Poland, a NATO ally prioritizing its eastern defense posture. In February 2025, the U.S. State Department approved the sale of 2,166 GBU-39Bs to Israel as part of a $6.75 billion weapons package. And in March 2026, right now, Boeing has secured a $289 million direct contract with Israel to supply up to 5,000 GBU-39B bombs at around $57 to $800 per unit, with deliveries expected to begin approximately 36 months from now. That timeline alone suggests either that current stockpiles are running low or that existing inventory has already been earmarked for other customers. The Middle East is consuming Western precision munitions at a staggering rate. And as with PAC-3 missiles, of which the United States reportedly used more in 3 days defending against Iranian missile and drone strikes than Ukraine has received since 2022, Ukraine is not at the top of the queue. The arithmetic is unforgiving. Israel's conflict with Iran has effectively placed Israel in direct competition with Ukraine for limited precision guided bomb stockpiles. And geopolitical reality means that competition is one Ukraine is unlikely to win on terms favorable to its timeline. So where does that leave Ukraine? Perhaps the answer is one that Ukraine has repeatedly shown the capacity to find when left with no other choice: innovation. Ukraine has already demonstrated extraordinary ingenuity in developing and deploying FPV drones, fiber optic guided munitions, naval drone swarms, and long-range strike drones that have hit targets deep inside Russia. An effort to develop a domestically produced Ukrainian glide bomb went public in late 2024. Whether that prototype has matured into a production munition remains unclear. There has been no confirmed evidence of it in active use as of early 2026. But the trajectory of Ukrainian military innovation makes it unwise to bet against this outcome. And that, my friends, is the fascinating and frustrating paradox of this development. The Mirage 2000 dropping AASM Hammer bombs is a genuine strategic milestone. It opens a new offensive dimension for Ukraine. It strikes Russia where Russian forces have been striking Ukraine for 2 years. It sends a message about the expanding capabilities of Ukraine's Western-equipped Air Force. And it gives Putin yet another headache in a year that has already delivered many. but it remains for now a capability that is constrained by numbers that are far too small to match Russia's industrial scale glide bomb campaign. 60 Hammers a month against 3,500 Fabs, 5 Mirages against over 350 Russian aircraft capable of carrying glide bombs. The capability exists. The gap in scale is still vast. What happens next depends on 3 things: how quickly France can ramp up Hammer deliveries, how many additional Mirages actually reach Ukraine and on what timeline, and whether Ukraine can find creative solutions, domestic production, alternative suppliers, or new tactics to stretch the impact of its limited glide bomb stocks. On all 3 fronts, the situation is evolving rapidly, and World Brief Daily will be watching every development closely. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and have notifications enabled, because the pace of change in this conflict means that what's true today may look very different in the coming weeks. Don't miss the follow-up analysis. The introduction of Mirage 2000s carrying AASM Hammer bombs is not a turning point on its own, not yet. But it is a signal, a clear signal by that Ukraine's Air Force is evolving, that its Western partners are deepening their support, and that Russia's glide bomb dominance is no longer going entirely unanswered. For a military fighting for its survival against a larger, better-resourced adversary, the ability to strike back in kind, even in limited numbers, has enormous strategic and psychological value. Putin is watching, and he is not enjoying what he sees. We'll, of course, keep a close eye on all developments as they unfold and keep you fully informed, so make sure you don't miss out. And while you're here, France's support to Ukraine goes far beyond the Mirage 2000 and the AASM Hammer. There is an entire story to tell about the broader scope of French military assistance. From air defense systems to armored vehicles to training programs, check out our deep dive video on that full picture. And as always, thanks for watching.